Yeah.
Hi, this is Melanie for the Pardesi channel, and I'm joined with Matt of Koricon Nala. I'm so excited. For
Hey,
those
everybody.
for those of you that don't know, Matt was my first collaboration ever, and he was so kind to have me on his channel when I was just starting out. I
It
don't
was
even know
funny
how
how
many months ago that was. It was a long time.
it was probably a year ago, like I think about this time last year, like
Yeah,
January
yeah.
or something.
And then it was this summer, my husband and I took a trip to Colorado. And so Matt is also the first fellow YouTuber that I've met in person. And we did a collaboration, a couple of videos this summer together at his house, which
It
was
was
wonderful.
really, but it was really, really hot because we
Oh,
had
yeah, it was hot.
the in that room.
Yeah, a lot of lights and a lot of a lot of computers whirring and yeah.
Yeah, and we had to turn the fans off because of the background noise, and I'm just like I wonder if all this sweat is coming through. Like in between takes, I'm like wiping out, like taking all the sweat off me.
As
The
my makeup
disgusting,
slides down my
yeah,
face.
the disgusting behind the scenes of how to make YouTube videos.
But it was super fun actually being in the same room and watching some trailers together and reacting together. We're not going to do trailer reactions today. It's been a big week for movies, and Matt actually took a day off of work to make
Two.
sure 2 days of work, which is really something in this busy holiday season, too, because there were, I mean, it was like every single industry in India was putting out one of their major movies on December 21st. Now, I lucked out a little bit because they spread it out a little bit here because sometimes we get the day before. So I was able to kind of string it out. But over a 3 day period, I watched 4 movies. Like Matt was saying, he was up really late doing editing. Same for me this week. It was like 2 in the morning, multiple nights in a row, seeing an evening movie and then going. So I saw Sitakati, Antariksham, KGF, and Zero. And I know Matt saw KGF and Zero. So we're going to talk, and we both were able to see KGF in the original Kannada, which I think is awesome that they were
Yeah.
able to get the screen space at this holiday time here in the US. And that both of us were able to find us. I'm in Chicago, Matt is in the Denver area. And it was, I mean, the distributor, I think, contacted both of us, wanting to make sure that we could find a place to watch it. I was really pleased. One of my local theaters that doesn't often have Indian films, much less Kannada films, had all 4 languages. They had, like, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 screens, and they were kind of alternating times. They had it in Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, and Hindi. And, you know, so it wasn't a huge crowd at my showing because I think the population here of Desis didn't necessarily know to look for that movie at that theater. But I was really excited to be able to see it fairly close to home in the original Canada. And KGF lived, to me, it totally lived up to the hype. It was epic. It was so big. I'm so glad I was able to see my first Canada film on the big, big screen.
So one of the things that you're talking about the weekend distribution company,
Yeah.
Weekend Cinemas. Yeah, they had messaged me, and I was like, "Well, who else are you talking to? Like, what other YouTubers are you talking to?" And they're like, "Just you." And I'm like, "Well, then you need to go and talk to Melanie. You need to talk like." And I gave them a list of like 5 people. I said, "You need to message them, and them." And so I guess they did message you
Well,
then.
I think they messaged me because I actually posted on Twitter like a little dancing penguin
Oh,
gif saying I was so happy because my local theater was going to have a showing in Canada. And then they like replied back, well, you know, say what your theater is, you know, and so forth. And so then they private messaged me and they were like, well, you know, because I was saying I couldn't see it until Friday night. And they said, well, we have a showing at that theater, you know, on Thursday night, but it's holiday time. I had a holiday commitment that I couldn't get out of. And that's why I went to the late show of Antariksham on Thursday night. And then I saw Zero in the afternoon on Friday, and then KGF in the evening. So yeah, I finished the best for last. So
For me, because I also do American reviews that I do on the other channel, but I also do them for my local newspaper. They use my reviews at the Longmont Observer. Is our local paper, and so I had to catch up on some new movies, American movies as well. And so the reason I took those 2 days off was they weren't showing Zero on Thursday. They only showed it on Friday.
yeah, same for us. Yeah.
And KGF was starting on Thursday. So I went to the AMC and I did 2 days of 3 movies apiece.
Oh my gosh.
I saw.
It's like a film festival or something.
I know. But I saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on Thursday.
Amazing.
I love that movie. And then Wreck-It Ralph 2. And then I went and saw KGF that night. Then I did that review, I edited it. I didn't get to bed until like 4 in the morning, like I told you. Then on that Friday, I went back and watched Zero, and then Bumblebee, and then Aquaman.
Oh my gosh.
And then I didn't get home until like midnight. And then I was like, okay, I'm not filming anything tonight. Like I'm so dead.
Yeah.
And then that's
problem.
why Zero.
Sometimes you come home from these late shows and you're like, I mean, I look at myself in the video, I'm like, oh, I look really tired because I am. And I try to get that energy and do the review because I want it to be fresh. But sometimes I know that I look like a zombie.
Yeah. I mean, that's why my review didn't come out till the next day, because I was like, okay, I could either do a review right now and it would be like this. So in Zero, like he did the thing and there was the there was the gravity stuff and
yeah, exactly.
I'll see you in the next video, or I can go and get some sleep and then the next day after work do a proper review. So I think people didn't mind the 1 day wait if they get a better review out of it.
Well, I figured KGF was one that I actually felt stronger about of getting it out right away. So I actually recorded my Zero review, but I didn't edit it until the next day. I just didn't feel as much urgency. Also because I wasn't slamming it and I wasn't saying this is the best thing ever, you need to run to the theater right now. I mean, it was one of those, and I think you had a similar reaction. We can get to Zero in a minute, but KGF, I was so happy to see on the big screen. The trailers were so incredible. Especially, I remember that first teaser showed us some of the behind the scenes of how they were building this huge, elaborate set. And especially the second half when we're in the Kohler Goldfields, in that huge practical set, I was just sitting there in the theater thinking, wow, all the money they spent on this really is paying off because it looks incredible. And just because it had the dust in the air made the cinematography look so beautiful. I was thinking about, my son is in show choir. I know, they had nothing to do with KGF, but the point is they actually do those sort of fog machines for the shows because that allows you to see the change in color of lights on stage. And that's what I was thinking about. Having all of that dust in the air made the colors and the sun shining through just like this golden glow at times over things look so beautiful. It may have been deadly dust, but it looks so beautiful.
Yeah, it's a natural diffuser.
Right, exactly.
So it kind of makes them look a little bit bigger and diffused. It's like putting a nice little blanket on everything.
Well, and just kind of like the sun is behind them instead of it being a harsh or like, what is that flash kind of effect that J.J. Abrams does, all the time.
Lens flare.
Lens flare. Instead of a lens flare, like you say, it's more of a diffused, but it's a backlit glow around people. It was just amazing looking.
Yeah, this is one of the things I like to talk about when we're talking about budgets. People say this is they spent so much money. Yeah, I understand that they spent money, but where did they put the money? You know, you can spend a lot of money on a movie in the wrong places.
Yeah.
You know, KGF spent their money wisely. Look, they didn't have a huge budget. They didn't have Marvel money budget movie,
Right.
right? They had a big budget for a Kannada film. And what they did is instead of trying to break into CGI and doing some CGI stuff, they spent the money on getting a lot of extras, doing large sets, having large practical things. Those always look great on camera, and they are cheaper than CGI. But if you're going to spend a big amount of money, put it in practical first, and then if you have the budget, maybe a CGI touch here or there just to clean something up or adjust something or make it look a little better. But put your money in practical first and then CGI later.
Yeah.
Or if you budget your movie and you have enough money, then maybe you can do something with CGI. But always try and do something beautiful and spend your money on the big practical stuff.
I mean, a recent film, were you able to see First Man starring Ryan Gosling?
No, I wanted to where he go the biopic.
Yeah, Neil Armstrong. And to me, what was amazing, obviously there was CGI in that, but actually it was how much was practical sets that they really recreated the feel of those old rockets. And they actually had Ryan Gosling in like a practical thing that was shaking him. I mean, I think he got a concussion because he was in like one of those.
Did he get shaken baby syndrome?
Yeah, because they were really literally shaking him around and doing those tests that put all those gravity forces on you to see if you have the till it makes you pass out, and like Ryan Gosling's like, I'm ready, let's do another take. And they're like, maybe we better take you to the hospital. You're not really sounding coherent. But anyway, just the practical sounds and I don't know, it just added so much. And which obviously a space movie, you think, okay, it's all going to be CGI. But they spent money on making things feel so real. I don't know, it was amazing. But anyway, so back to this, I totally agree with you. Somebody was arguing with me in my comments who hadn't even seen Bahubali, because I said in mine, somebody asked me immediately afterwards, well, how does this rate, Bahubali and KGF? Because what are the two movies that are really trying to get an audience across India in the last few years? This film and, well, maybe something with Rajnikanth, but like 2.0, but... they're kind of going for that same, we're dubbing it in all these languages so everybody will see this film. And to me, Bahubali is way up here, but it's not because of the CGI, although it was stunning. It's the storytelling and, editing and whatever. And so KGF, I think, is way above average, but for me, Bahubali is still my favorite. But that doesn't, this is still an amazing film. I was thinking to myself how much plot and how I could follow the story in Bahubali, and there were some things that were kind of confusing. We both talked about how there's this group of bearded guys and this other group of bearded guys. And it was like everybody, all the villains and shades of gray, are they aligned with Rocky or are they not? Okay, first I should say, we're going to get into spoilers because the movie's been out for a while. We've each I did a mostly spoiler-free review, but at this point, it's been out for a while, so I'm just going to say we're going to get into it.
For everything. Everything we talk about could have
Zero,
spoilers.
KGF, everything we're going to talk about spoilers. It was confusing just because everybody's look was so similar. It was really, and the narrator, who is this sort of, there's multiple narrators, but the narrator that's like the reporter, he's like listing up, boom, 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 and this person has two sons, and it was just, like, your head is spinning, and because everybody looked so much the same, literally kind of pointed beard almost the same, that it was hard for me to differentiate, at least in the first half, who everybody was and who was aligned with who. And multiple people in my comments have said, well, you need to go see the movie again. I almost think it was like the directors, maybe that's just part of the experience there, that they figure everyone will see it multiple times, but I don't know that you should really be counting on that. I don't know.
No, no, especially from, a reviewer aspect. We should be able to do our jobs by watching the movie one time. If we can't, then that, could be the fault of the movie. It could be the fault of the reviewer. I mean, whatever it is, but
I mean, we're not getting everything
we
through
don't.
through the subtitles. We're not getting every single word. So,
well, people have to understand it's hard enough for us to see it one time. There's no way I'm going to be able to see it twice.
Yeah.
Like that's virtually impossible. I can't even see all of the American movies that come out. There's no way I'm going to see one of them twice.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, I just don't have that kind of time. Now, when it comes to comparing with Bahubali, I didn't even consider comparing them because they're different genres.
They are different genres, yeah.
And I don't compare between genres. I might compare something that's kind of close together. If anything, I compare movies that are sequels of each other because they are connected. If they're interconnected, like in the same universe or whatever else, I'll do that. But different genres, you can't really compare them because they're totally different storytelling.
Yeah.
With KGF, what I liked the fact that the character is more zeroed in on one person because you have more of an ability to create, a good character. When you have a lot of characters, it's hard to get an attachment to one. They focused mostly on Bahubali, but for you still have a hard time balancing all of that characterization. And then if one doesn't get quite enough, then that character falters, and it's a lot more difficult to write. Something like KGF is a lot easier to write in that you're focusing really on Rocky, and then you only have to kind of deal with some side characters, but they don't have to get as much attention. And then your villain, which we didn't really have much of a main villain. You had villains that popped in, and then you had I guess the main villain guy was the person I got wrong. I got his name wrong when I said.
I didn't even try because people have to realize we're trying to do research. We cannot read news articles in the original Kannada or Hindi or whatever it is.
No, and IMDb doesn't have any information for this movie. It's so little information. It's crazy.
Man, I actually was connected to somebody who works now at IMDb in India. And she says, I know it's bad because, I mean, they're trying to improve it, but I think also it's just not part of the culture there. Where in Hollywood, of course, they would release everyone's film credits, who's on the crew and everything to IMDb. And I don't think that the filmmakers think of that as a necessary step. Whereas here we are, we're struggling. There were multiple movies this week where there was a debut actor in Sitakati, and I wanted to call out his performance as being good. I couldn't find what his name was. I'm left begging in the video, can somebody tell me who this guy is? Because he was awesome.
I thought I got it right, and I was like, and then I like put it on the video. I'm like, this guy, right? And then someone was like, oh, that wasn't him. It was someone. I'm like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Because
because you go into IMDb and you're looking, okay, there's the picture. Yeah, that's the right guy. And they don't, even if it might be a big star, they don't have their picture. It's so frustrating.
Yash, I'm looking at it right now, and Yash does not have a profile picture on IMDb.
Get on it, Yash. Get on it.
I mean, Yash, of all people, does not have a profile picture.
Take some pity on us, please.
But in my review, the villain, I guess mainish villain in KGF, one of the reasons that I talk about why I want people are like, it doesn't matter what language you see it in because it's all subtitles. Mm-hmm. Go see the Tamil version or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, I want to see the movie in the language it was filmed in because I want to hear the performance of the actor, even if I don't understand the words.
Exactly.
And that was important for that villain because he had this really great kind of grainy, guttural voice that matched his mannerisms. And even though I didn't know what he said, I had the subtitles there. But his performance was very specific to his voice. And
Right.
any other actor that dubs it in another language is not going to match that.
Right. I mean, when I
So,
went to see 2.0, I wanted to hear Rajnikanth in the Tamil. And evidently there's a famous, voice actor that does the Hindi, and he sounds very similar to Rajnikanth. I don't care. I want to hear Rajnikanth. When I go see Bahubali, it was more expensive to see it in the Telugu, but I wanted to hear Prabhas speaking for himself and not
yeah.
hearing someone else dubbing for him. So yeah,
Now,
it was
when it came to 2.0, I had people say, well, Akshay's speaking in Hindi, so if it's in Hindi, it's okay too. And I'm like, that made me think about it. And I was like, okay.
You're right. That was a hard choice because Akshay was
Well,
dubbed. And so
no,
if you watch the Hindi,
wasn't.
you could watch his performance. But if you watch the Tamil, then you could hear Rajnikanth. So
Well,
yeah.
I still end up. I went to see it in Tamil because it's a Tamil film. Everyone else is speaking Tamil, so even side characters, I still get any kind of performance they might have. But it did make me think: what if, make it the American reviewer version, where it's just a mix of the languages of whatever that person speaks. It would be cool to see 2.0 where everybody is speaking Tamil except Akshay speaking Hindi.
Yeah.
And I am not going to hear the difference between the languages.
Right.
The subtitles are all the same, but it would be cool to hear both performances at the same time.
Yeah.
And I know there's an edit of that out there somewhere because they had to have edited it before they dub it. I want to hear that. I want to hear the... Yeah. So maybe someday in the future I'll get powerful enough in my YouTube career that I can adjust how movies are released.
Well, someday when it comes on streaming, I might just watch that whole flashback section of Akshay in 2.0 because I do think it was actually one of the finest performances I've ever seen Akshay Kumar do. I don't know what I was expecting for what his character was going to be about, but it definitely was not a two-dimensional villain like you might have in another movie. So I liked that whole backstory. I felt like I've never seen him play an old man. It was really something. So it's something I want to revisit in the future. Now, KGF, I didn't really feel like we got anything beyond these villains are just villains and they're the big baddies. To me, it was almost like a video game. Like by the end of the movie, he had reached this level of boss, and we've still got the big boss to come in chapter 2.
Well, I'm thinking about it this way. I think chapters 1 and 2, that chapter 1 is going to be the characterization of your main hero. So chapter 1, the villain doesn't matter as much because we're really just building up Rocky and his story. Chapter 2, like even at the end of this movie, we got an idea of here is the villain. I think chapter 2 is going to be your characterization of the main villain or the big villain, so that you have at the end of chapter 2 the big kind of blowout between both. But I don't think they had introduced our main villain yet.
I just think the narrator may have mentioned his name or something, and they may have flashed to him, but it wasn't a full characterization of knowing who he is. And I also complained that the poor woman in the film, she hardly had. I had a throwaway line that she didn't even get a song, and then people are like, "Why would that be?" I'm just like, I was saying she didn't even get a song. Like she hardly had anything to do besides Yash just looking at her like, "You are my woman." So people have said that she had interviewed and that she gets more to do in the second film, which I think she's the daughter of the big villain. Am I correct? Is that what you remember? There's some relationship there. So
yeah.
So maybe that will come in much more to play in this. I hope she gets more to do. I think we have like another year to wait. People had said there was only maybe 10% or something of the next film filmed. And that was, I had never seen that. I kind of complained about it as that the narrator was saying, "Oh, we skipped ahead again." And it was like they had trailers for the second film embedded in this film, which I don't know. To me, I didn't even realize that that's what they were going for. In my head, I was just like, the director was like, okay, I've got this other cool scene to show off Rocky, so we're just going to throw that in too. And I didn't realize he was really advertising part 2.
Yeah, it was more of like a, coming up next kind of section of the movie.
But in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy. But it was very stylish film. To me, it sort of reminded me, I don't know, like a Robert Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino kind of.
Rodriguez is a good one. If you think about Desperado or Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Yeah, yeah.
Like those kind of feel, I totally get that. Especially like the cinematography is what really blew me away in KGF. It was the fight scenes that really I didn't like, but
yeah,
it wasn't the worst. Like for me, the worst is probably Assassin's Creed. If you haven't seen it, don't watch it.
I have seen it, unfortunately, because I'm a Michael Fassbender fan.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
So they had the shaky cam, they had the quick cuts, they had the close-ups, and then they added a fourth dimension to make it even worse by switching between present and past during the fight scene, and the villain would become a ghost. And it's insanely horrible. And at least with KGF, they didn't do that. You had some shaky cam. It was the quick cuts.
Shaky cam. Yeah, the quick cuts during the fights.
There were so many quick cuts you didn't. Yeah, it was like you just saw flashes of light, and then all of a sudden, and then a slow-mo. But at least in KGF, the slow-mo cinematic scene that they would have would give you enough time to reacclimate so that when you get into the next step of jump cuts, that you can kind of follow along until it starts to get overwhelming, and then they have another slow-mo part. So you could follow it. It was just like, yeah, I could follow it, but that's not how I want to watch an action scene. I don't want to just be like, well, I could tell what was going on. Okay, no, I want to see it.
Right. I mean, I have seen some really bad action scenes. There was a recent film with Naga Chaitanya, a Telugu film. I think it was Shailaja. Anyway, so it's called The Son-in-Law. Shailaja Son-in-Law. And, like, you could literally, because the camera was always way back, you could literally see when he was missing. Like, they didn't even have a good angle. You could see that he was whiffing the punch past, like a foot from the guy's face and whatever. It was so bad. But I never felt like... So, I'm not saying we have to always have the camera way back showing the entire scene. That's not what I'm saying. But it was so much quick cuts that I couldn't... You had a good point. Like, as a viewer, I couldn't really orient myself on what was happening because everything was so quick cut. It was like close-up of this punch and what... I'm like, who did he just hit? Like, I couldn't even really get an overview picture of how many guys are running after him at the same time or whatever.
So there's a video. I'll send it to you. Maybe you can link it in the video for people that are interested. But there was a kind of little mini documentary, short like interview session done with Jackie Chan about how he constructs a fight scene. And one of the things that he points out, and he uses, they show clips, is when you edit, he says it takes the human brain about a half a second to a second to reacclimate to the new surroundings, right? So when you watch his fight scenes, he doesn't just, like, if you're going to be here and you do a connect and then you do a cut from like another angle, you don't start from here and then go through. So he would do this is the end of the first cut. Okay. And then if you're watching the second cut, he starts it here. So that the brain reacclimates at this moment. Okay. And once it's reacclimated, it hits. So he's timed the reacclimation for the cut to where the hit, so it looks smooth in your head. But
that's what was missing. That was what was
Yeah.
missing. I felt like like that's the feeling that I had in the theater. Like I can't, and sometimes I was feeling like, am I old? Is this like the way people are watching video games or something it's just that kind of perspective and it just looks, I don't know, but that's exactly how I felt. Like my brain could not readjust to all the different perspectives fast enough to figure out exactly what was happening spatially in the fight scenes. And I felt like the use of the shaky cam, I mentioned, it could even be trucks coming down the highway and seeing their headlights, and we had to have shaky cam for that for absolutely no reason. Like, I sort of get it. It came from the Bourne films of having that visceral feeling that you're in the middle of a fight using this kind of the shaky cam. It's like our hero is off kilter, and so we're off kilter too from being hit or whatever. But, when it's just like an establishing shot of trucks coming, like it was too much. Too much. Like, do I need to bring Dramamine to these movies? Kind of like,
No, like shaky cam, if it's ever used, has to be limited and has to have a reason. And like you said, an establishing shot of trucks coming towards the camera, just put it on a tripod. There's no need for the camera to be shaking around.
Yeah.
Even like in the Bourne movies, the first Bourne movie I thought did I wouldn't really call it shaky cam. It was more of a steady cam holder, but the camera shook. The term shaky cam comes from when they have the camera is actually on a stable gimbal, but then the cinematographer, the director, will be right next to it, slapping the hell out of the camera to make it shake. If you need to hit your camera, don't do it.
Yeah, or I couldn't tell if they were doing it in post-production to make it look like it.
Some of it was,
some of it. I don't know. Yeah.
Just don't do it. Now, when you're doing things like in the middle of a fight scene because you want it to be a little bit more visceral, yeah, that's fine. But whoever is controlling the camera, if you have a very good camera operator, they can make it look dynamic without doing this. They can keep the camera stable. It's just kind of floating around or moving. Or you might have a short jump, but the rest of it is still stable, and you just have like little jerks, but you're not doing this the whole time.
Yeah.
If your eyes can't pick up the motion blur, if you have too much motion blur, you're not going to tell what's going on. What's the point of the fight scene? There's no you might as well have just filmed color and put exciting music and punching sounds. It would have had the same effect.
So I watched this director, Prashant Neel's first film, Ugram, and Matt, I would highly recommend that you watch it because it does not have the shaky cam, and especially the fight sequences are epic because they keep going. It keeps going and going and going, but in a logical way, a way that my brain could acclimate what was happening. It was so well done, and I could see why everyone was so excited for K.G.F. after watching Ugram, which evidently was this big blockbuster debut filmmaker. It also had more of an earned love story in the movie that, which, that's the kind of thing that appeals to me. But the
what?
Yeah, I know,
no
crazy,
way,
crazy.
What? No way.
But I enjoy a good fight scene too, and the Ugram fight scenes were epic. So, and just. The kill count in that movie, I don't even know how high it is. It's crazy. It's crazy big. So, highly recommend. Is it
like a John Woo movie big?
I don't know, but it's big. So, I just think, I think you would really enjoy it. So, highly recommend that you check it out. And so that's why I was a little disappointed with some of the fight scenes here because I know this director was so good in doing them in his first film, and I don't know if it was the editor that made those choices of all those cuts or exactly. Obviously the director was probably working with the editor, but I just don't know
Well, I have heard in my comments, I don't know how true this is. It could just be people guessing. But they said because of the ratings board, that they may have had to edit the fight scenes more than they were expecting to get the PG rating that they were looking for.
That could be. That could be. Yeah.
And if that's the case, I guess I understand it. Maybe plan out those fight scenes better for the next time then. Yeah. I'm hoping if you said they only filmed like maybe 10% of the next movie, if he had this kind of trouble with the ratings board and it made this edit,
yeah,
then maybe he will adjust in the second chapter to make the fight scenes better. Because if he, like you said, if Ungram has great fight scenes, he's probably just as frustrated with the outcome of KGF if that was the case.
Yeah.
If it was what his decision was, and this is how he wanted it to look from the beginning, I would say go back to Ungram. But if you if you had to make these edits to get your PG rating, then maybe he would be like, okay, I need to adjust things so that I can get back to where I need to be, but still keep my PG rating.
Right, or have flexibility where you have, when it's released later on streaming or whatever, that it can have, the fuller version or whatever. So, yeah, I had not heard that about the censor board with the fights. I could believe it because the first Ugram was pretty violent. And I don't know if I was watching a censored version or director's cut or what. But, yeah, I could believe that. So, okay, that's an interesting perspective, though, that... Because normally normally hear about the censor board. It's not violence that's a problem. It's, you'll see someone's cleavage being pixelated or whatever. That's more than what I...
Well, I hope that if it is the censor board that caused that edit, then that would make me a little happier knowing that there's a reason and that it wasn't meant to be that way.
Yeah.
But I also hope it means that he will plan the filming of the action scenes to be able to be edited better for a PG rating in the second chapter.
So I feel like we've been super negative about the movie when really we both really enjoyed the movie. I think Yash's performance was very, very good. I actually watched one of his earlier blockbuster films, Googly, which sort of means like love spinning, I guess. And it was more of a college romance kind of a movie. And so he was actually really zany, and he was almost like Varun Dhawan or something in Googly. And it was really interesting because I'd seen the trailers for KGF. I was like, wow, this is really different. So I was pleased to see like how much range he has, that he can do really comedic. But I thought, most of especially the first half of this film, is him looking cool and smoking a cigarette and whatever. He looks really cool. He completely carries it off.
He's got the swagger for sure.
Yeah, someone compared it to John Wick, and I thought that was also a really good comparison of, we learned some of his backstory, but it's not like super in depth on everything. It's a lot of swagger, a lot of style. And, he's really violent, and that's just who he is, so, and they're establishing this is one scary dude. Well,
one of the things I liked about, and so like with John Wick, you get an initial motivation, which after you kill a dog, you've got to die. I mean, that's just how it goes in movies. But, you get your initial motivation, and then parts of the character get peeled off throughout the film. But you're not going to get a full characterization. More of just more stuff to kind of keep you going through the movie. A lot of exposition from other characters talking about that character.
Yeah.
In KGF, you had the backflashes with the mother. And that was a strong point for me in this movie, is I liked the fact that, for some movies, I prefer just linear. Just give me the story of him with the kid, with the mom, and then give me today. because the jumping back and forth between time periods, if it's not done right, it doesn't work. It can fail very easy. But I thought they were very smart with it in KGF, where you have a scene with the mom, and it's not just to have a scene with the mom. There's something about that scene that is specific to whatever his situation is present day.
Right.
And so you peel this layer off with relationship with him and his mom and whatever experience they had, and then you go through what he's going through right now, and then you have another layer that you peel off with the mom storyline, and then it culminates right at the end where she says, "Don't take people, go by yourself."
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
and says a leader, if you're a leader, people will follow you. And then it shows like her scene, especially right at the end, the scene with her and he runs away, the music cue, and then you see him standing in front of all the people at the gold fields. That was so impactful for that. That's where I got my goosebump. Was right there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, see, now that is how you intercut past and present, how you layer those kind of characters.
Yeah.
But I do want to see a lot more of his characterization in the second chapter. But I think most of that time is going to be spent on building up the villain, which is not going to be a bad thing because we need a strong villain to go up against,
Rocky.
a super charismatic Rocky. Yeah, Rocky.
Yeah, I noted, like another good example of that was when he was in the car with our heroine and he stops traffic because he sees a mother carrying a starving child and she's eyeing this roll that has, bread that has spilled on the street and she wants to pick it up, but it's in the middle of traffic. And so he stops all the traffic so that she can pick it up. And he's flashing to how his mother felt, she couldn't provide for him and so forth. And so he's flashing back to that. So, yeah, I thought it was really good. And when I was complaining about that there was no love story, one of my viewers made a very interesting point. He said, no, it was the first love story. Every Indian hero's first love is his mother. And that's really the relationship that was in this movie, is the one connection that he has is that relationship with his mother. And so that was the strong relationship through the whole film.
Yeah, and another thing that I liked about the mother storyline is whenever you have, any kind of entertainer film where the good guy can do these amazing, impossible fight sequences, the over the topness, which I have nothing against over the top action scenes. I like them.
Yeah, me too.
But I do want a reason. And I'm not saying I want a scientific reason. I'm not saying I want a logical reason. I just want something in the story that I can grab onto to say, okay, that's why he does it. The Matrix takes place in the Matrix. That's why they can do all that stuff. Any superhero movie, they got their powers from gamma rays or radiation or they're aliens or there's a reason. For some Indian movies, you have they might get imbued with the power of a god, like they channel Shiva, and so they can do all of that stuff.
Yeah, like Bahubali sort of seems to have that. Yeah,
right. And so with KGF, though, I felt like he was drawing from the power of the mother, of his mother. The strength, and he mentions that right near the beginning when he stops for the bread. He's like the most powerful person is the mother. The one that sacrifices the most, the strongest person is the mother.
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, okay, so he's drawing all of his strength from his mother. When he's going into these epic battles, he's probably thinking about how much she sacrificed for him. It's giving him all of this adrenaline, and that's why he can swing around 100-pound sledgehammer like it's a wiffle baseball bat. Which is fine, and I don't mind because it looks cool. The slow-mo, especially with, like you were saying earlier, with the dust, you have the sunlight in the background. It's all diffused. It's cinematically gorgeous. And right in the trailer, that one scene where you see him just kind of clothesline this guy and he falls over. It just looks really cool. So
another scene that was really cool that you alluded to in your review, but I didn't even discuss because I was trying to keep it spoiler free, is the scene where he rescues the old man in the mine, and all the bad guys
No,
have
I
their
didn't
torch.
say it. I didn't actually say it.
You,
People
I,
keep
you no, you
saying
did. You just alluded to.
no,
Yeah,
but people are saying stop giving spoilers. I'm like, I
yeah.
didn't give a spoiler.
You
I just said if
didn't.
you had seen it, the fight in the mine. Just
Yeah.
say it. Just say
Right.
it.
I mean, like the movie is set in a mine. Like you're saying, there's a fight in a mine. Like, how is that a spoiler?
Exactly.
But oh my gosh, what that was an incredible whole. That whole
But
sequence was
that
incredible.
but that is one of the moments where quick cutting sometimes can be beneficial.
It was. It was.
But they also used a lot of, it's basically a horror story element.
Yeah.
You had a lot of thematic music. You had a lot of quiet moments where you're trying to hear what's going on, but it's just a lot of dark. It's very
Yeah.
a lot of darkness. You have firelight flickering here or there. That was my favorite. I think that was my favorite fight scene in the film.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved that. Like in the theater, I was going, "Oh yeah, okay, now
I know.
that I can get on board. That
Yeah.
I can get totally on board."
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
And I
That
wasn't
was
expecting
amazing.
it.
I wasn't expecting anything like that either, because normally these Southern Indian films, it's all, the fight scenes are always outside where you can have rustling leaves that come up from the fight punches or whatever, or it's in a factory or something if it's indoors. So
Well,
people, yeah,
they're usually grand, big and grand. This
right,
is a horror movie.
yeah, it
Like
was
that
just
fight scene was straight out of a horror movie. Like The Conjuring or The Nun or something like that. It was total different. It was like a genre change right in the middle, and it made perfect sense. And I love the old blind guy just kind of walking around in the middle of the whole thing that's going on. I'm like, this is awesome.
it was so good. It was so good because yeah, he was just like you say, he was the scary bad ghost, and they're like, where is he? Where is he?
But he's just confused, like just trying to get out of the way. But he keeps like walking in the middle of everything that's going on. I love that.
It
Yeah.
was so good. That was one of the best sequences, and I didn't even mention it, but yeah, but it was a highlight. That was definitely a highlight. Also for me, the background music, the entire score, I thought was really strong. This was not the kind of movie where you had dance numbers. I mean, I even mentioned that, Rocky was too cool to dance. People danced around him in a couple of songs. But he did not dance. He just, strode with cool and his cigarette like he walked through a scene. But just the background music, though, I thought really, especially like that scene was one where the background score was really incredible. But throughout, I thought it was really strong.
I liked the background score. I don't know if for me it was as strong as it was for you. I think for me it was like, and I said it in my review, that the background music supported the tone of whatever scene it was in very well.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm thinking back on it, I can't tell you a tune. I
guess
can't
that's
remember.
true. Yeah.
So it's not like I remember a specific theme or anything. In that aspect, it reminded me of a lot of Marvel movies in that the background music supports the tone, but it's not like being aggressive or bold about it.
Yeah.
It's just there. But you can tell when background music is bad because it takes you out of a scene. And I never got that.
Yeah.
I always felt supported with the emotion. There was no part in the film where the music, took me out, where I'm like, why does it sound like that? I'm supposed to be feeling sad right now, not excited,
Yeah.
But the background music, I thought, supported the film exactly the way it should have. I just don't think it was memorable.
Yeah. Well, I am really looking forward to chapter 2. I guess we have like a year to wait. We'll see. Probably the filmmakers are waiting to see how much money they can cash in, to see what kind of budget that they can really go for part 2.
And maybe they're watching our reviews and they're thinking, all right, we need to make sure that we edit these action scenes, film them better so that we can edit them for a PG rating smoother.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be better. That would be nice.
That would be nice.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Saying, like, you know, great villain characterization. That would be cool, you know? Just saying. Melanie wants a love story. You know?
I would like a little. Give me a little something.
Give her a little something. At the end of KGF Chapter 2, it says, like right at the end of the credits, special thanks to Matt and Melanie.
Yeah. My friend Kartik, who encouraged me to start my YouTube channel, he was just like, you're not going to have made it until you're one of those digital partners or whatever at the beginning of the credits. You know, like when you see MissMelanie.com and all of those. Yeah.
I actually have been that.
You've been that?
I was a digital partner for a short film, one of the ones that we released on my channel. And when they just wanted to release it on my channel.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, sure. But when I watched it after I uploaded it, they had put digital release partner and put my logo up there. I was like, whoa, that's weird. It's weird to see my stuff before their short film. I'm like, maybe put it at the end. I don't know if I'm important enough to stick it before your movie.
Well, seeing your name on the screen is really something, because my husband and I did executive produce a movie that was at Sundance, and that is going to be like one of the highlights of my entire life, like seeing our names in the credit of a movie. It was really something. So, all right, let's move on to Zero, which is, I was glad that you and I were kind of simpatico in that there were things that were really good and there were things that were just really mind-boggling. Yeah, it was so hard to give a rating of the film because I still
go back and forth on my rating.
I know. Like
there's moments where I was thinking the other day, I'm like, maybe I should have given it a C or a C plus, and then I'll remember a scene that I really liked, and I'm like, oh no, see, that would bring it up a little bit, and then I remember something else, I'm like, oh no, that would bring it down a bit, and it's like, but there wasn't anything that was, most movies that I rate in the B's or the C's or whatever else, a lot of it is in that area, and there's only maybe a couple of things I could push it up or down. With Zero, there was nothing really in the middle. You had some really incredible A plus, A or A plus stuff, and then stuff that was like D.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, well, where do you get, how do you justify the center in there? Yeah, it was
totally. And it was It was even harder to talk about that and make it spoiler free, because I frequently just do completely spoiler-free reviews, but I felt like this one, I had to at least do a couple minutes at the end to say what some of the things that I really had a problem with, and they were more script-driven, and just, literally, like somebody commented, like, that's the whole reaction that there, because I'm just going like, but,
yeah.
I mean,
I haven't seen a movie in a long time that had that drastic of a gap of good and bad in the same film. Yeah. I've been trying to think of a movie that has had that kind of a gap, and it's either all bad, all good, or all in the middle. But to have so many things that are on one side, like the dance sequence with him in the hotel.
Yeah, Marinama.
Beautiful.
That is one of my highlight song sequences of the entire year. I mean, I had loved the shortened version that they put out before the film, but then to see the full thing, amazing. Absolutely amazing. So imaginative. and it was just a flight of fancy too. Like all of a sudden it starts raining and it's inside. I loved every second of that. And
Now,
I'm a Shah Rukh Khan fan, so to see him do the the whole thing.
Yeah, and like there were, the visual effects that they did are amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the first falters I saw in the visual effects was actually in that dance sequence, right at the end where he lands on his knees and slides towards her. There was a section there that he just kind of floated, and I was like, okay, they had a hard time connecting this part with this part, and so there's maybe, I would say 12 frames, half a second of him being static and floating to get to that next section, and it looked jumpy. But I was like, if that's the only complaint I have, come on. Yeah. A half a second float, that doesn't look bad. The whole dance sequence was beautiful. The colors, the water, use of slow-mo when they needed to, the band in the background.
Yeah.
All of that was gorgeous. But then immediately after that, he basically sleeps with her, and then that's it. Stops calling her.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was the moment where I'm going, you're going to work this hard just to get in her pants. Like, I don't care about your character now.
So I actually ran out to the restroom, I think, like right after the seduction scene, and then I came back in just at the moment when his father said, "Let's set the wedding date." So I kind of missed.
Oh, so okay. Did
she say to the parents, like, he hasn't called me or something?
No. So what happened was, he's, they're laying in bed, they're having the sequence, and then right after that, the next cut is him lying on the hood of a car, and his brother says, "Well, what happened after that?" He's like, "Well, that was it." He's like, "What, you haven't talked to her in like a month?" It's been a month. And he never called her back. So they go from this amazing kind of romantic sequence to being such an asshole. And then at that moment, I was like, I don't care what happens to your character. Like, I don't want you to win. If anything, I would only be happy if your character gets worse and worse and eventually fails at the end of the movie, is the only way I would end up liking this. But if you're trying to redeem this character, you just lost me. So from that moment, I was like, I just didn't care. I was just kind of following to see what happens with the story.
Well, I mean, I need to see a big redemption arc. I need to see groveling. I need to, like, in Googly, for instance, I'm spoiling it for you, but the interval scene, he misinterprets something, gets jealous, and slaps the heroine across the face. And I'm like, okay, you better be crawling across broken glass if you're going to end up with her at the end of the movie, which essentially he does. And he really goes through an arc, and at a certain point, when he reconnects with the heroine, she lies and says, "I'm engaged," because even though she still has feelings for him, she knows it's not right for her to get together with a jerk. So
yeah, but then it just gets worse in Zero, though. He runs away at the wedding day.
Okay, but I have to say, one of the what the fuck moments for me was when she's giving this big talk about her research. She sees him in the back, and she pulls out a gun. Like, what? Okay, like, I guess it's just because we're all gun mad in America, and she lives in America, so therefore, of course, she would be packing a pistol in her wheelchair.
Yeah, I don't get it. I was a bit confused. I'm like, you're in a very secure building with security. Why do you have a gun on your wheelchair? But if she wanted to have one, that's fine. But yeah, when she just pulled it out and started shooting, I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
What was going on there? For me, it was the anti-gravity room. Okay. Now, if this is my big problem with the anti-gravity room. If this is supposed to be a realistic movie, that doesn't exist.
Right. They have
Now
to use to use those planes where they
you have to use the vomit comet or the parabola for free fall. And that's reduced gravity. It's more of just you're following at the same rate as the airplane, so you got free fall. But anti-gravity does not exist. We don't even understand gravity to be able to create anti-gravity. Now, if you set this in the future, they're going to try and land on Mars. Sure, someone invented it. I can get along with that. But when they do the training for all of the Mars stuff, they do the underwater training, which is done to try and as closely represent zero gravity as possible.
Right. Right.
Why are you doing the underwater training if you've got this big anti-gravity room right next door? Why aren't you doing all your anti-gravity training in the anti-gravity room?
Yeah.
Why is that anti-gravity room only there for that one scene? And then they're like, it's not practical to use it for our training. We'll just go underwater in the big pool.
It's more like it's too expensive for us to do special effects more than one scene.
I guess.
But I mean,
so I didn't like that. I didn't like that whole anti-gravity room. I got really confused. I was like, yeah, look, but that scene is a perfect representation of how I feel the movie. Yeah, the scene looks cool, but my brain is going, what? Why? It looks pretty, but why?
It's just so she could turn it off and he slams on his face. That's the entire reason for the scene to exist, you know?
Yeah.
I think.
Why not just pull out the gun and shoot him?
I heard one of my viewers said that when Shah Rukh Khan agreed to do this film, the script was not finished. That the director narrated the concept to him and maybe at least half of the film, but it didn't necessarily have an ending. And I don't know if that's true, but I could totally believe it. I could believe that Shah Rukh Khan wanted to work with this director and was interested in the challenge of being a dwarf, which I felt like he completely pulled off. There's no reason why a dwarf can't be an unlikable character. I didn't hate him as much as you did, but I also didn't feel like he really redeemed himself. But I felt like the whole last part of the film just didn't work for me. I felt like they needed to work on the script more and make things make more sense. I'm fine with having a fantasy film or a science fiction film or a flight of fancy or whatever, but it just didn't hang together at all.
Yeah, the ending felt to me like they wrote themselves into a corner and just didn't know how to get out of it. And part of that reason is what he did to her was so big and so bad, because I stopped caring about what happened to him, that you have to do something equally big to try and redeem him in the eyes of people. But what are you going to do besides sending him to Mars that's going to do that? And I like the fact that they kind of set it up in that she is the scientist that worked on that. So there's a logic that goes in that direction. But it seemed like, all right, we don't really know what to do. So we're just going to tack on this training montage and then send him to Mars at the end. Because even her forgiveness of him seemed like abrupt and quick. Like her turn.
Totally.
I'm bipolar, and she looked more bipolar than I am in that last quarter of the film. I was like, wow, girl, you make me feel normal. I'm like, I don't need my medication because there are people like you in the world.
Yeah. She was so, not that she didn't deserve to be harsh, but yeah, it was like whiplash. Like, she would go, I felt like, yeah, she looked sad at the wedding with Madhavan. Point. I have to say something about Madhavan's hair.
Now, look, Miss Madhavan, we love you, we love you.
We love you. Okay.
And he did take it in stride. He retweeted some of our tweets, and he knew that we were joking around. And I just want his fans to understand that we are friends. We're all friends. We're all friendly. He knows that we're not being mean or malicious.
I'm not being mean because I would say the same thing to my son or my husband. I would say, I love you, but I don't like that haircut. And
Now,
it was funny because Bharadwaj Rangan's review just came out, which you should read because is so interesting. His take on the film Zero. He had a completely really interesting take on it, but he did mention Madhavan's hair, and he said it's styled to look like a cabbage leaf.
Oh no.
I literally almost fell off my chair laughing.
Now I did get a comment from a subscriber that said that his hair looks that way because he's growing it out for rocketry.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than that in-between hair when it's not hair. One thing or the other, it's just in between. And I agree, for a cameo, it's not worth it to cut your hair.
No.
For that short of a cameo role. And I was delighted when I first saw him on screen. I didn't know he had any part in the film. There's several cameos. He has probably the longest cameo of anyone in the film.
He's basically a side character for the second half.
And I was so happy. I was like, yeah, they've set up someone that is a real alternative for her. Why would she choose this dwarf that dumped her when she's got Madhavan? But then there's that one scene in the parking lot when he sort of makes clear he just kind of wants her for her mind and to be partnered with her on this project. It was a couple lines of dialogue in there. I'm like, they're not making him a villain or anything, but they're just kind of making him someone where...
Well, he's not in love with her.
Right, exactly.
It's more of like I wouldn't say a business transaction, but
meeting
more
of
of
the
like
minds. It was like a meeting of the minds.
Yeah, it's like a mutual respect for each other kind of thing, which is... That actually happens, so that's not a big deal. If you want to see the progression of Madhavan's hair, what was funny is the interview that I did with him.
Yeah.
The next day is when he flew out to L.A. So right after my interview, he flew to Los Angeles, did some stuff there, and then went to Huntsville, Alabama, where they filmed all of his scenes.
Okay.
So if you watch my interview, you'll see his hair maybe 2 weeks before how he looks in Zero, and then you watch him now, and you'll see his progression into rocketry of where he's going. So we're looking forward to rocketry, and we love you, Madhavan. We only jest because we love you.
I only rib because we love.
Yeah.
Now, he is one of my favorites, and I was so happy, and I'm sure because he was in the Tana Was Manu films, he was happy to do a favor and be a big star presence in a smaller role, but he had an impact, because when you see, she's like, oh, this is her fiance? Like, she doesn't need this. She's not just sitting around pining, and she's moved on. So... Yeah,
And this is another thing. Like, I'm looking at the IMDb for Zero right now. He's not even in there.
Well, I think they kept, everyone knew that Sridevi, that she was a part of the film because there had been Instagram pictures during the filming, and people knew that is her last screen presence ever on, the last time she's ever on film before she passed away. So,
and they dedicated the movie to her too.
Exactly. So people knew about that, but I was really pleasantly surprised and delighted with each cameo. I think we knew some of the women that were in that party scene with Sridevi because I think there was a photo released during filming of some of them. I don't think we knew necessarily that Deepika was part of it, but that one surprised me. The cameo that delighted me also was Abhay Deol playing Katrina Kaif's ex-boyfriend, on-again, off-again boyfriend. So did you catch because you're probably not as up on the gossip, but did you catch all of the digs of the fact that...
Do I look like a guy that cares about celebrity gossip?
Okay, well, that's what made those scenes so delicious, Matt.
I know. After I saw your review, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Because I said it in my review. I was like, she seems like she she acted those scenes so well. She must have gone through something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then I got a bunch of comments going, oh, yeah. Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
But I thought she did a
she was
beautiful job.
practically engaged to Ranbir Kapoor. And then he cheated on her and he left her. And it was this whole big thing. And he's just known as being a womanizer. I watched Coffee with Karan. There was a famous episode where two of his ex-girlfriends were on there, and they basically, were making all these digging comments about him and what a dog he is. Now he is paired with Alia Bhatt, their boyfriend and girlfriend. But the big thing was, and like Deepika Padukone had his initials tattooed on the back of her neck. I think she had that changed for her wedding. Yeah, it's an RK on the back of her neck, Deepika Padukone. So it was a big thing that Katrina Kaif went to that wedding because of all of the bad blood around who was dating Ranbir. Like, Ranbir is the center of all of that. And the fact that the character that Abe was playing had a last name of Kapoor was like, oh man, they went there. And you're right. I mean, she was really it was like she was playing herself in a lot of ways.
Well, I was
showing this vulnerability. I've never seen her act like that. It was amazing.
I was getting a sense that she was using this as a way of getting some of that emotion out.
Yeah.
Like, this was almost therapeutic, like she was, because she put all of it in there. Like, she was on the recent Coffee with Karan Johar's talk show. And he was this was before the wedding, and he was questioning if she was going, if she got along with these other women. And she said, she basically was like, I've moved on. And she seemed to be so centered in herself. And like, there's no reason for me to hold animosity. She didn't use the word, but it was kind of like water under the bridge. Like, I'm moving on. I can be pleasant to everyone. I can get along with everyone. And I've moved on. So, and I'm happy being single. Me and my brother talk about, you can always tell when an actor, especially if they're doing like a sad, or, well, there's a fly there. Anyway, if they're doing a sad or an emotional scene, if they do the snot bubble acting. If they're acting so hard that you get a snot bubble, that's where you give them the Academy Award. They acted snot bubbles. That's how good they are.
That is Viola Davis. That is her entire.
Yes, exactly.
She's the queen.
I love her.
She is the queen of the snot crying.
But Katrina Kaif had some scenes in there where I'm like, oh, she is feeling this for real, and I'm expecting a snot bubble like any minute. I was like waiting for that snot bubble. I'm like, come on, Katrina, you can do it.
Well, she was,
but she had the makeup running.
Yeah.
You could tell she was crying. That's not just putting water on the eyes. She put it all in there, and I was pleasantly surprised with that.
Yeah, I mean, the scenes that she had with Shahrukh were some of my favorite of the film. I thought it was really interesting commentary also on stardom of how everyone, I mean, she literally says something. They were like, well, aren't you going to do your hair? And she's just kind of like, I'm a star. I just take my headband off and it's good enough. Like, she just goes to this appearance in a t-shirt and boxer shorts, and she's like, what does it care? They're just happy to see me, and and then when she kisses him, she's like, no one's ever going to believe that I did this. No one's ever going to believe you.
That reminded me of something. As soon as she said that, no one's going to believe you that this happened. Reminds me of the Bill Murray story. He was at a Wendy's, and he walked up to this guy, grabbed a French fry off of his plate, ate it, and said, no one will believe this ever happened, and then just walked out. No one's going to believe you that Bill Murray just came and stole a French fry from you at Wendy's.
There are so many Bill Murray stories. He does tons of stuff like that, where he'll just walk into somebody's wedding, or he'll walk into a bar and go behind the bar and start tending bar. Like, he is just known for just going out there and being his own self.
He's done it so much that now if someone says a story, people would be like, yeah, I guess I could see that. I could totally see Bill Murray just stealing a French fry. But with Katrina, that would be more impactful. Like, there's no way he could tell people that she kissed him and anyone would believe him.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it was so interesting that he kind of became one of those hangers on, sort of the posse that some stars have because they're so isolated in this bubble. They almost have to travel with their friends to have somebody real, somebody to hold their hair while they're throwing up in the toilet or whatever it is,
Yeah.
to really be there for them, that they can be there, they can drop that star quality and just be with someone. And
Well, also to not have a yes man.
right,
Just to
right,
have someone that'll give it to you straight is
right.
worth paying for when you're that big.
But yeah, it was just an interesting dynamic that he became that for her. And then like he couldn't bring himself to, like, he had to make that scene. They both could see like they had to do something dramatic to cut it off because they just had such a relationship. They could have just gone on forever if he didn't, if
Yeah.
you know, like, he made her kick him out.
Well, and the thing about those scenes, like, that section of the movie would have been a lot better for me if the crap that he didn't happen. Like, as soon as they cut back to him being on the hood of that car and I realized he did all of this just to get in her pants, there's no actual love there, which I was surprised. And I'm like, wow, I don't care what happens to you now. And so everything that happened after that with her, if I just look at that block of sequences, they're great.
Yeah.
But it's filtered through this emotion of, like, I don't want you to be happy. Like, you don't deserve to be happy. You don't deserve to get anything. I don't want to see you succeed. And so it got diminished for me.
Yeah. Well, I kind of like that his character in some ways was unlikable even from the beginning, was so filled with one-liners and cocky and just sort of had this chip on his shoulder like, what else is God going to do to me? He's already done this. And
yeah, but that was fine. That was fine for that first part where I understood all of that.
Yeah. But they could have gone deeper into,
but, yeah, he doesn't
into sort of his rage of this is who I am, and I don't know. I mean, they could have gone deeper with that, but they didn't. That's not where they chose to go with it. Like, maybe he didn't feel like he even deserved to have her, and so therefore, but that's not the way they played it. From the way you described that scene, that's definitely not the way that they played it. They didn't play it as him thinking, I don't even deserve to have a relationship.
No. From the way that they played it was, I won. But now that I've won, I don't need to, I acquired my goal, I slept with her, and now I don't need to have any more contact with her. Like, it was just a trophy for him. But they didn't set that up. There was no setup of him wanting, like, they showed them falling in love. They were playing it as if it was a love thing.
Right.
And so you have this love increasing, this huge dance number, everything's going beautifully. You're like, oh my God, they're getting together. And then, bam, she was just, sex for me. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? That was such a huge, stark, like, cut. I was like, wow, you didn't even set that up ahead of time that he was trying to do that. If you did that and then I saw it all as like this ruse and I'm feeling bad for her, it may have softened it for me, but there was no softening. I thought they were falling in love, and then it was like his emotion just got shut down, and I was blown away. And so I guess the shock of that was so hard for me that I turned all emotion off for that character after that. I didn't care what happened to him.
I thought he was just going to run when he found out he was in the dance competition. I didn't even think he was the kind of person that would go and have that conversation with her. I was trying to allude to that in my review without, like, not giving spoilers, but I mean, I guess everyone can guess that he was the one that ran. But I was really surprised that he even had that conversation. You know what I mean? He didn't even seem like the kind of person who would feel like, I need to explain that I'm leaving. You know what I mean? That he would just run. Like, he seemed so callous that he would just leave her, at the wedding and not even explain. And because he was obviously feeling trapped, he was feeling he had no choice, that his parents were doing this and whatever. Just like you kind of get, we've seen other movies where people just kind of get swept up in trying to live up to what their family wants. But we saw from the beginning he didn't care what his father wanted. He would just throw money out the window, his father's money. Like they didn't establish that he really cared about what his family thought. And so I was really surprised. It was a very interesting scene, the dialogue and the way it was written between the two of them. It just was kind of surprising that it happened.
Yeah, and the way that she revealed that she was pregnant, she revealed it in that scene. You know, when he said, Babita kissed me, and she's like, and I'm pregnant by, and I don't remember what actor she mentioned.
Did she know? I mean, it wasn't clear to me if she knew. Oh, that's why she sought him out? Okay.
Well, no, that's why she went to the house in the first place. She didn't go there to try and marry him. The father is the one that said, "Okay, marriage is on."
Did she say she was? That was the part that I was out of the theater. Did she say I'm pregnant to the parents, or?
No.
Okay.
You just saw her talking to him. She mentions it later, when he's holding the
baby.
The baby. She says, "I went there just to let you know that you don't have to be a part of the baby's life, that I'm just here to tell you that I'm pregnant." But she had, because it had been a month.
Yeah.
She had already accepted the fact that he was an asshole and that she really doesn't want to have anything to do with him. But he does deserve to know that he's got a kid.
Yeah.
And then the father is the one that said, "Okay, marriage." So they just kind of both got wrapped up to it. But she revealed to him that she was pregnant. He just didn't get it.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't get it either. So, I mean, like, looking back on it, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, that moment, other people have complained about the whole baby plot and the fact that he grabs the baby and then she tells him that it's his and he instantly falls in love. And I think he sold that, and I didn't mind that there was a baby twist. To me, it was the gun that was the, like, what the heck moment for me. Not the fact that she had a baby. She definitely seemed like a strong enough person to carry on, be a single mother, continue in her job as a scientist. Like, to me, it was totally believable.
I didn't see a problem with the baby storyline. It's something that's been done multiple times, and I mean, it makes sense.
It does make sense.
You know, if you spend, $500,000 trying to sleep with a girl and then she gets pregnant, don't be surprised. That's how it happens.
Well, and if he is so callous that he never called her back or whatever, it doesn't seem like the person that would necessarily think ahead to, have a condom and be mindful of anything like that, right? So
No.
Totally fitting with his character and being selfish and only thinking of himself. But being Shahrukh, he did sell that he immediately fell for the baby, and at least they had one little scene of him sneaking into her house to have an interaction with the baby. But then he goes on, how long was the Mars mission supposed to be? It sounded like it was
15 years.
Was that how long it was supposed to be, or how long it ended up being? It wasn't clear to me, but...
No, that's it. They're actually right about that. 15 years is because when you, especially in today's technology, you have a small window of when you can launch to go to Mars.
Okay.
So the way, Mars is here, Earth is here. When they're going in their movements, in their orbits, you have to launch initially when Mars is here and Earth is here, between the two parts of where they're the closest during their orbit. You only have that small window, and it's like a couple of days. You launch here, sorry. And then as the rocket's going towards Mars is coming and cutting some of that time. So it only takes 3 months to get there.
Okay.
But you can't leave Mars you can either only stay there, I think it's for like 60 days, or no, it's only a few days, maybe a week or two, and then you would have to launch again to get to Earth, or you have to wait for the next cycle. But I don't think it's 15 years. I think it's something like...
I thought it was like 5 years.
I think it's like I think the scales are something like, it's like 15 or 30 days, and then you'd have to wait another 10 months or something, and then maybe 5 years, depending on where all the orbits are.
It sounded it sounded like his rocket got lost, and then I'm just like, okay, what about food? What about oxygen? Like, I was just... I mean, granted,
well, what they didn't show is that part of the film is The Martian with Matt Damon.
Okay, he planted some potatoes and it was all good. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, he just planted some potatoes and he was all good. So they need to remake the Martian with Shah Rukh Khan as what I would totally watch that movie. Actually,
yeah, I would totally watch that movie.
I would totally watch that movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just like, okay, so you're... I don't know, he kept expecting her to stop him, and she didn't. Yeah, just the whole last part of the movie just got so crazy, and I think you're right. I think they wrote themselves into a corner. They had to have something epic to redeem him. I didn't completely buy it, and I felt like we spent so much time showing all of the NASA training. And again, it was just sort of like, well, this looks cool, so we'll throw this in, and we'll throw this in, like you were saying, like the scuba training and the this and the that. And I'm like, it just made it long unnecessarily, but yet I still didn't feel like just the fact that he was doing scuba training meant that he was redeeming himself in her eyes, if you don't understand what I mean. So
yeah, if all it shows is that he's not giving up, you're showing that he's willing to not give up, but it's not strengthening a relationship.
Yeah, I don't know. The last part didn't work for me, but there was so many other parts that were so good. So yeah, I was really torn. Well, we have been talking together, I think, for like an hour and a half, which was an amazing conversation. I loved all of it, and we definitely need to do this more often because this was really fun. And it was nice that we both saw these big movies, right in those first couple days that they came out, and I've been dying to talk to somebody else about it, because my family doesn't go see these movies with me, and I literally stop random strangers as I walk out of the theater because I'm so like burning to talk about the movies. I had this great conversation with this married couple that I mentioned in my review, because I literally just like stop people. I'm like, what did you think? Like, did it live up to your expectations? Because I have this outsider's perspective. And I think I generally kind of know what these genres are, because some of my viewers were complaining, well, for KGF, this is what we like, so this is what we expected. I'm like, okay, but, I've seen other Masala movies. This is a little bit different, but I literally will stop random strangers because I want to talk about these movies. And that's probably why both of us have these YouTube channels, is that allows us to have conversations with our viewers and talk about them because they're so interesting, and I always want to learn more about the films. And like I said, I heard about Ugram and Googly from my viewers when I did the trailer reaction, and I don't know that you would like Googly, but I will recommend Ugram to you. I think that one you would like.
So you were saying you talk to people as they come out of theater. I can talk to my father because he's been watching Indian movies as long as you have, but I don't really talk to people in the theater too often. Most of the time it's because I have somewhere to go, and most people don't know who I am. But
it doesn't matter if they know who I am.
I know, but like for KGF, I had talked about how the theater was half full and that you had people whistling and cheering, and I got a little bit of that. and I was even sitting next to this Indian family that were enthralled, and I got a comment from that guy that was actually sitting next to me, and I wanted to read it. I'm trying to find it, but he said, "Oh, we were the enthralled couple or family sitting next to you. If you remember, my wife swapped seats with me because she was actually sitting next to me when I sat down." And I said, "Yeah, I remember that, but don't. It's all good. That happens to me a lot. You know, when a big hairy guy sits down next to your wife, most of the time the wives want to swat." They don't feel comfortable with this kind of brooding, large, hairy man that just sat down next to him. It makes them feel uncomfortable because they don't know me. But he said, yeah, we were wondering what was going on with this guy that was taking notes with this big notepad.
Oh, you take notes during the movie?
Sometimes. I brought a notepad that day because I was watching 3 movies, and I didn't, if I'm just seeing one movie, I may not do it. Unless I feel that the story is going to be super dense. But if I'm seeing 3 movies in a day, I want to make sure that I can look back at notes, and
it gets all jumbled in your mind. It's hard to keep everything straight and remember.
Oh, totally.
Remember your thoughts. It can be really hard. Yeah.
Totally.
And it's like I'm trying to gather my thoughts on my drive home and do a review right away, and it's hard. And like somebody critiqued me and said, just make it 5 minutes. It's like, I know I'm rambling, but when you're trying to do it fast, you can't necessarily organize your thoughts and make it really concise. So that's it's like, do you want it fast or do you want it perfect?
Here I found it. He says, Koricon Nala, hello from the enthralled Indian guy who sat next to you at the AMC Westminster. He goes, guess you remember that I swapped my seat with my wife? Got to say that I wasn't very sure about this weird guy with a pen and a piece of paper in a dark, loud movie theater. Friendly laughing. If I knew you were taking notes for a review, I promise I would have been more friendly and tried to answer any questions. I took a little bit of time to respond, and then he had responded to some other people, and he has a huge list of like 11 or 12 huge chunks of notes that he had on his review of the movie. But yeah, I liked that. Hello from the enthralled Indian guy who sat next to you.
Did you tell him after the movie that you were going to be reviewing it, or did he just go look for it? That's wild. You didn't even mention, and he just found you? That's amazing.
Yeah, I guess he had just seen my review. He's probably like, hey, wait a minute.
Hey, wait a minute.
Hey, that's the weird guy with the notepad.
Have you ever had anybody recognize you at one of your movie theaters?
What's funny is, so I'm 6'2". You've met me. I'm 6'2". I weigh about 325. If I'm not smiling, I can look pretty intimidating. And I've had people that say afterwards, hey, I saw you at that thing, once they've talked to me once or twice. Or if they know a friend of mine, I'll get a message from a friend of mine saying, hey, my friend so-and-so saw you at this place. I'm like, well, why didn't they come and say hello? And I think it's usually because I was thinking or concentrating, and so I look pissed off. And I'm not trying to look pissed off. It's my resting face. So if I'm like concentrating on something, like say I'm taking notes or I'm looking at comments, my face looks like this.
Right. Yep.
So people assume I'm mad or I'm pissed off, and then they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to make them angry. And I'm like, I'm really just concentrating. As soon as you say something, I'm like, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. So, I get a lot of people that tell me after the fact that they saw me somewhere, but maybe they didn't want to interrupt me or something. Other than that, I have met fans. Like before Bahubali 2, I had the subscribers that bought me the ticket so I could go and see it with them, and I did the little vlog with them and stuff.
Very cool. Very cool.
Oh, and KGF, that was paid for by my subscriber Kushal. So I want to say again, thank you to Kushal.
That's awesome. That's awesome that he would do that, because, you know, it is expensive to go to all of these films, and especially the South Indian films are more expensive than like a regular Hollywood movie ticket sometimes. So
It is.
it's an investment. So yeah, that was a very kind thing for him to do. But of
Yeah,
course,
it's sometimes
I mean,
3 times.
it served him that he wanted you to review it. He wanted your perspective on it, and so he made it happen. So that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate this. We're recording this on Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas, Matt. I hope you have a great holiday, and we will definitely be doing this again, because this was super fun having a conversation. Maybe we won't wait until part 2 comes out. We'll think of something else before then, because
Sure.
since that's a year away.